Yeah.
And so, we went through that period of time where we don't stay together long because once the Commodores took off, we didn't have that everyday time anymore.
For over 50 years, people have walked up to me in airports, restaurants, and hotel lobbies with the exact same expression on their faces. They look at me, they smile, and they expect me to break out into song. They want me to tell them that everything is easy like Sunday morning. They want me to sing about endless love, dancing on the ceiling, and holding hands in the moonlight. And for 50 years, I have gladly been that man. I built my entire life on love. I made a career out of helping people fall in love, make up, and slow dance their way through heartbreak. But tonight, I'm turning off the smooth track. People look at Lionel Richie and they see a guy who has never held a grudge in his life. They think I floated through the 70s, 80s, and 90s on a cloud of velvet, satin, and platinum records. But let me set the record straight right now. You don't survive 5 decades in this business without collecting a few scars. You don't make it to this side of the mountain without stepping into the ring. Beneath every smooth ballad, there was blood, sweat, courtrooms, and late-night arguments that tore my soul wide open. I want to talk about 5 people, 5 forces, that brought out something in me that was anything but easy. 5 names that at one point or another in my life I genuinely hated. Not because I'm a hateful man, but because love and anger are 2 sides of the exact same coin. Let's go back to where it all began. Tuskegee, Alabama. When you start a band with 5 other guys in college, you aren't just business partners. You are a pack. We shared cheap burgers, slept crammed in the back of vans, and built a sound out of thin air. We were brothers. Milan Williams, Walter Orange, Ronald Laprede, William King, Thomas McClary, and me. We promised each other that we were going to conquer the world together. And for a long time, we did. But success is a strange mirror. When Easy blew up, when 3 Times a Lady took off, the light started shining a little brighter on me. I didn't ask for it to happen that way. The world just decided to point the spotlight at the guys singing the ballads. And in a group of proud, talented men, that spotlight becomes a laser beam that cuts right through the foundation. By 1982, the room had turned cold. When I decided to step away to record my solo record, the resentment didn't just linger, it turned toxic. They felt betrayed. They felt like I had taken the keys to the house we built together and locked them outside in the cold. But what broke my heart, what made me sit in my office in Los Angeles with tears of pure rage in my eyes, was when the brotherhood turned into a court battle. In 1982, I found myself filing a major lawsuit against my own brothers over withheld royalties and fair compensation. Think about that for a second. The guys who shared a stage with me in front of tens of thousands of screaming fans were now standing on opposite sides of a courtroom, arguing over dollar signs and songwriting credits. I felt stabbed in the back. I hated them for making me feel like all those years of sweat and brotherhood were just a business transaction to them. I felt stranded, labeled as the traitor who abandoned the ship, while they actively tried to keep what I had earned with my own sweat and ink. For years, if you brought up the Commodores in my presence, my stomach would tighten. The resentment was a heavy, suffocating weight. Time is a funny thing. It wears down the sharp edges of your anger whether you want it to or not. Years dragged on. The legal battles finally reached a settlement, and the dust settled. But the real healing didn't happen in a lawyer's office. It happened when I looked in the mirror and realized that their anger came from pain, and my hatred came from heartbreak. We grew up. We picked up the phone. We didn't pretend the lawsuit didn't happen, but we chose to remember the Tuskegee days instead of the courtrooms. When we lost Milan, and later when Thomas and I spoke, the walls came down. We made peace. We embraced as older, wiser men. We never had that grand, nostalgic musical reunion tour that the fans always asked for. Some broken plates can be glued back together, but you can still see the cracks, and that's okay. But I can sit here tonight and say, with complete honesty, that I love those guys. We made history together, and peace is worth far more than holding on to 40-year-old bitterness. Now, let's talk about June 1988. If you were alive in 1988 and picked up a newspaper, you know the story. You couldn't escape it. It was splashed across every headline in America. Lionel Richie's wife arrested in Beverly Hills. Brenda Harvey was my college sweetheart. We had built a life together from nothing, but by the late 80s, our marriage was a ghost of what it used to be. We were drifting apart, locked in a cold war of silence, emotional distance, and unspoken pain. And then came the night that shattered everything. I was at an apartment in Beverly Hills with Diane Alexander. Brenda found out. She didn't just walk into that room. She exploded into it. It was a scene straight out of a nightmarish movie script. Violence, screaming, breaking glass, police sirens, handcuffs. Brenda was arrested for corporal injury to a spouse, battery, and resisting arrest. In the days, weeks, and months that followed, my private life was laid out on a butcher's block for the entire world to pick at. I felt humiliated. I felt hunted. The divorce was a bloody, drawn-out war that dragged through the courts until 1993. There were moments during that period where I looked at Brenda with absolute, unadulterated venom. I hated her for the public humiliation. I hated her for the legal attacks. I hated her for turning what was once a sacred union into a circus that threatened to destroy my career and tear down everything I had built. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of tabloids, attorneys, and rage. If anyone told me in 1989 that Brenda Harvey and I would one day sit at the same dinner table and laugh until our ribs hurt, I would have told them they were completely out of their mind. But there was a bridge between us that neither of us was willing to burn. Our daughter, Nicole. When you look into the eyes of your child, you realize that your adult pride is a pathetic thing to cling to. Nicole needed us to be adults. She needed a mother and a father, not two warring generals firing shots across Beverly Hills. Slowly, painfully slowly, Brenda and I started communicating. We had to peel back the layers of guilt, shame, and anger. I had to take responsibility for my part in breaking her heart, and she had to take responsibility for the destruction that followed. It took years of uncomfortable conversations, but we did the work. Today, Brenda is family. She is my sister, my confidant, and one of my closest friends. We survived the scandal of the century, swallowed our pride, and chose love over lifelong resentment. You would think a man learns his lesson after one catastrophic divorce, but life has a way of testing your resolve until you finally pay attention. In 1995, I married Diane. She was young, vibrant, and for a while, she was my sanctuary from the storm I had just lived through. We had two beautiful children, Miles and Sophia. But by 2003, history repeated itself. The marriage fell apart, and I filed for divorce. I thought I knew what a bitter divorce looked like from my first marriage. I was wrong. What followed in 2003 wasn't just a breakup, it was a high-stakes financial execution attempt. Diane filed a countersuit that left my legal team with their jaws on the floor. She alleged fraud, accused me of hiding assets, and demanded monthly alimony numbers that sounded like the budget of a small nation. She listed her monthly expenses in black and white, tens of thousands of dollars for designer clothes, a personal plastic surgery budget, thousands for vitamins, massages, and horse care. When I read those court papers, I didn't just feel angry, I felt deeply used. I felt like the man who had poured his soul into writing love songs was being treated like a walking ATM machine. I hated the audacity of it. I hated sitting in depositions listening to lawyers dismantle my hard-earned wealth as if I were nothing more than a bank vault to be cracked open. The public ridiculed me. The media mocked the astronomical expense reports. I felt exposed, financially targeted, and deeply bitter that a woman I had loved and shared children with was trying to bleed me dry in open court. The divorce was finalized in 2004 after a massive multi-million-dollar settlement. I walked out of that courtroom, poorer in my wallet, but determined not to let that bitterness poison my spirit. Once again, the path to peace was paved by my children. Miles and Sophia were watching. They didn't deserve to grow up in the crossfire of their parents' legal warfare. I realized that if I carried that financial grudge forever, I would be letting Diane's lawyers win every single day inside my own head. I decided to let the money go. Money comes, money goes. You can write another hit song, you can do another world tour, but you cannot buy back peace of mind. Diane and I called a truce. We laid down our legal weapons and shifted our entire focus to co-parenting Miles and Sophia. Today, we maintain a peaceful, respectful, and functional relationship. The anger is gone, the wound healed, because I refuse to keep picking at the scab. Now, let's move forward to 2026. People ask me, Lionel, You're an elder statesman of music. Why do you care about what the new generation of stars is doing? I'll tell you why I care. Because music is a sacred trust between an artist and the audience. In 2026, the industry watched a young pop star named Chappell Roan make headlines. Now, talent is one thing. She's got a great voice, no question about it. But then came the reports and video footage of her security team and her attitude toward fans, specifically an incident where a frightened 11-year-old girl was shoved aside and treated like garbage just for wanting a glimpse of her idol. When I saw that, a fire lit up in my chest that I hadn't felt in decades. I didn't know this young lady personally, but in that moment, I felt a deep, profound disdain for everything she represented in that instant. I hated the arrogance. I hated the hypocrisy. Here is a generation of artists who stand on social media, begging for fame, begging for streams, begging people to buy their vinyl, buy their concert tickets, and vote for them at award shows. And the second they get the fame they begged for, they turn around and treat the very people who put them there like dirt on their shoes. I publicly stepped up and slammed her behavior. I didn't mince words. I said, "You are nothing without your fans." I spent 50 years signing autographs in the rain. I spent decades taking pictures with grandmothers, kids, and tired parents at 2 a.m. in airport terminals because I never forgot where I came from. Tuskegee taught me that respect is non-negotiable. To watch a modern star treat an 11-year-old fan like an inconvenience broke my heart and made my blood boil. It was an ideological war for the soul of what it means to be an entertainer. Why I refused to reconcile. People asked me, "Lionel, are you going to reach out? Are you going to smooth things over with her team?" My answer is a resounding no. This isn't a personal business dispute. This isn't a marital squabble over alimony or royalties. This is about principle. There is no reconciliation to be had here, because I will never apologize for demanding that young artists respect the public. Until a new star realizes that the fans standing in the cold paid for their mansion, their security team, and their luxury lifestyle, there is nothing to discuss. I refuse to back down from that standard. If calling out bad behavior makes me an enemy in her eyes, so be it. Some hills are worth dying on, and the hill of humility is one I will stand on until my last breath. Finally, let's go back to 1983. 1983 was the year All Night Long exploded across the globe. It was a massive, joyous record. It was the song that brought people together across every continent. I had poured my heart, my rhythm, and my soul into constructing that track. And then, right at the peak of its success, the legal vultures circled. A group of songwriters filed a massive, career-threatening copyright infringement lawsuit against me. They claimed that I had stolen the entire melody and composition of All Night Long from an obscure track titled Fiesta. When you are a songwriter, your songs are your children. They are born from your quietest moments, your middle-of-the-night inspirations, your blood, and your tears. To have someone stand up in front of the world and call you a thief, to accuse you of plagiarizing your greatest work, is the ultimate insult to your integrity. I didn't just dislike those people. I hated them with a burning, white-hot passion. I felt disgusted by their greed. In Hollywood, when a big record hits, people come out of the woodwork looking for a quick payday. My team came to me and said, "Lionel, it's easier to just pay them off. Settle out of court. Give them a few $100,000 and make the lawsuit go away so it doesn't distract from your album." I looked my lawyers dead in the eye and said, "Hell no." If I settled, I would be telling the world that I was a fraud. I would be admitting that I stole my art. I refused to let extortionists rewrite my legacy. We went to court. It was a long, grueling, exhausting legal battle. I sat in that courtroom every single day, listening to musicologists pick apart my notes, dissecting my rhythms, trying to paint me as a musical criminal. The stress was unbearable. It threatened my finances, my reputation, and my peace of mind. But I stood my ground. After a prolonged, agonizing trial, the truth prevailed. We presented our evidence, proved the absolute originality of All Night Long, and the judge dismissed the case entirely. Total victory. Did I reconcile with those accusers? Absolutely not. There are people in this world who seek to build themselves up by tearing down what you worked decades to create. You don't make peace with extortion. You defeat it in court. You close the book. and you walk away with your head held high. I never spoke to them again, and I don't care to. That victory wasn't just for me. It was for every creator who ever sat at a piano at 3 in the morning to build something out of nothing. Look at me now. I stand before you as a man who has lived a full, noisy, chaotic, beautiful life. If you live long enough, you are going to get hurt. You are going to be sued by your brothers, attacked by your spouses, targeted by lawyers, appalled by the younger generation, and accused by strangers. You are going to feel hatred, real, raw, heart-pounding hatred. But here's the secret that 50 years in show business taught me. Hatred is a heavy luggage set, and you cannot walk into your future if your hands are full of old baggage. With the Commodores, Brenda, and Diane, I chose to forgive. I chose to rebuild, because love was worth the effort. With the bullies and the extortionists, I chose to fight, win, and set a boundary that could never be crossed again. So, tonight, when you leave this room and you put on All Night Long or 3 Times a Lady, I don't want you to just hear a smooth guy singing a pretty melody. I want you to hear a man who fought for his peace. I want you to hear a man who survived the fire, buried the hatchets that needed to be buried, stood his ground on the principles that mattered, and came out on the other side with his heart wide open. Thank you. God bless you.